For the purposes of this class, we're going to focus on 4 scales of measurement. You may have been introduced to these in previous coursework, but the 4 scales of measurement are known as nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. It's important that you're able to remember these and particularly be able to differentiate between discrete and continuous variables, which we're going to talk about along with these. Nominal variables are variables that are categories. So you can see I've classified these 3 animals into pigs, cows, and dogs. But very often in social science research, we use sex, ethnicity, profession, religion, or political affiliation as examples of nominal variables. And the thing to remember about nominal variables is that you cannot apply mathematical operations to them. For example, if I have 5 males and 5 females, sex is my variable, but I can't say, what is the average sex in my group? 1.5. What do you mean? Well, if males are 1 and females are 2, you can't take the average here. So you can't perform mathematical operations. All you can do is count. You can look at frequencies. I've got 5 males, I've got 5 females. That's all you can do with this. Another important element to remember, nominal variables are discrete variables. So when we're talking about discrete variables, we're talking about categories. Our next scale of measurement is called an ordinal scale. And variables on an ordinal scale are placed in order. So they're categories that are ordered. Hot, hotter, hottest, if I'm looking at like hot chili peppers or something like that. But very often in educational research, we'll have class ranks. And we don't know the difference between, say, who's the valedictorian and who's the salutatorian, but we know that one is higher than the other. And so we don't know the magnitude between the two, but we know who was first and who was second. It's the same thing if you say, I graduated in the top 25% of my class. We don't know what your GPA is. We just know that you're in the upper quarter. An interval scale is a scale in which there are equal distances. In other words, you can look at, say, a test score on a standardized test, like the GRE, or a standard score on a mood inventory. And these are scaled scores. So let's say I take the Beck Depression Inventory, and I don't endorse any depressive symptoms. A 0 doesn't mean I'm never depressed. It just means I got a 0 on the Beck Depression Inventory. And so it doesn't mean the absence of a trait. So that's something that's just important to remember, is that when you get a 0, very often a 0 could even be an average if it's a scaled score. -1 standard deviation below the mean and -2 standard deviation below the mean. And so the 0 doesn't mean absence of a trait. So the neat thing about interval scales is that mathematical operations can be used. And so we often do this with, say, Likert type scales. I love this class. And you can say, I strongly disagree, I disagree, I neither agree nor disagree, I agree or I strongly agree. And we could take the average response for all the members of this class, or you could get an average. So another thing to remember is that an interval scale can also be an ordinal scale or a nominal scale. I can say I have this many strongly disagrees, and this many disagrees, and this many agrees. So I can look at frequencies. I can also look at the order, because there's a definite order to it. But once I start performing mathematical operations, but I don't have a true 0, it's an interval scale. Remember that interval variables are continuous variables. So I want you to keep that in mind. That when we're talking about continuous variables, we're talking about scores. And an interval scale can serve as a score. So ratio variables are interval variables with a true 0. How many beers did you have before watching this lecture? I had 0. 0 is an actual true number here, the absence of any beers. And once again, mathematical operations are possible, and of course, ratio variables are also continuous variables. We're going to be using these terms a lot, especially discrete and continuous. So spend some quality think time. And you have some practice assignments in the book, some study questions, as well as assignment 2 to help you identify what's nominal, what's ordinal, what's interval, what's ratio, what's discrete, and what's continuous. Feel free to post questions and let me know if you have any thoughts on this material.